morning sun shines on the gleaming hide of a muscular ranch horse. The aroma of bacon and coffee drifts from the wood cook stove at a cow camp. Silver spurs jingle as the men and women of the West get set for another day in the saddle. From the heart of Canada's finest ranching country, this is the Spirit of the West with rancher and horse trainer Hugh McLennan and his collection of music, poetry, and conversations with the folks who live and work with horses and cattle in the Spirit of the West.
1 year after the most famous cowboy artist of all time, Charles M. Russell, passed away, another legend was born. Ernest Morris, fondly known as Ernie, first saw the light of day in 1927. And he was the quintessential vaquero, horseman, gear maker, and artist. I recently got the news that Ernie had died peacefully in his sleep on May the 5th at his ranch near Templeton, California, and he was 93 years old. I was really fortunate to spend some time with him in Paso Robles, California in 2013 at the Horseman's Reunion, and it's one of those visits that I'll always treasure. And today, we'll bring you some of the life and times of Earnie Morris.
You can't mess with horses and expect to get wealth, but the satisfaction is something nobody can buy from you.
And Baxter Black brings us the story of a couple of darn good cowboys who nearly met their match.
A local cowboy saddled, loaded, and drove to lend assistance. Alas, even two buen caballeros could not move the stubborn bull.
And on the Rangeland News, one of the stories is how agriculture is leading the way to an economic recovery.
We are buying more coffee, fruits, vegetables, and other foreign products, and he says that's one sign of a strengthening economy.
And in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight, R.J. Vandegrift recites a fitting tribute.
And he'll sit there like a monarch in a 3X beaver crown on a throne of hand-tooled leather, 16 hands above the ground.
On the Urban Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, a fascinating look at two horses from totally different backgrounds and what happened and which one became the leader when they were turned out together. And we're going to start things off with a pretty appropriate song from Charlie Ewing.
Out of the golden poplar shade, into a grassy sunlit glade, the cowboy reins his horse to blow, sits and scans the slopes below for cattle. His saddle's made to rope and ride, riata and reins, a braided hide, chaps and vest and hat pulled low, just like 100 years ago, Vaquero. For 100 years he's been the king, his cricket clicks, his rowels ring, where cattle graze the slopes and hills, he practices vaquero skills unchanging. Country made just for the cow, too dry or steep to pull the plow. The cowboy sits and drinks it in, still just like it's always been, high lonesome. No man made wonders in his sight, still can see the stars at night. He's lost in time and all alone, away out here he feels at home, contented. For 100 years he's been the king, his cricket clicks, his rowels ring, where cattle graze the slopes and hills, he practices vaquero skills unchanging. To the sky as if to watch an eagle fly, a jet trail splits the sky like lace, reminds him of his time and place. Technology is here to stay, will progress drive his kind away, will he melt away like the mountain snow, go the way of the buffalo forgotten. For 100 years he's been the king. His cricket clicks, his rowels ring. Where cattle graze the slopes and hills, he practices vaquero skills, unchanging.
As I listened kind of spellbound to the legendary vaquero Ernie Morris, he told me how he grew up in the presence of a lot of hands who were very serious followers of those traditions in California.
I feel like that I never measured up to their socks when it comes to that, but they had different times than I did. And the ranches were big. They were 50,000 to 60,000 acre places. So it wasn't a place to run the milk cows and gather them to milk them. But it was a different world, a different time. There's not many of those things left now. It's all changed. The guys are looking after their own cattle instead of vaqueros and whatnot. It never was a good, lucrative thing when it come to payday as a cowboy or vaquero, buckaroo, or whatever you want to call them. It just wasn't in the economics, so they said. But they could spend $500 over a bar, no problem.
Well, it's we were talking earlier, and we see some of these traditions being carried on, and I don't know how you feel the future of this way of life is, and I had my real concerns for a while that, my goodness, is this a dying way of life? You know, are these wonderful traditions, the cowboy pride, the buckaroos, the vaqueros, is this all going to die and a generation will come along that has never heard of them? But we've still got a few good-sized working ranches up in our part of the country where they run, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 mother cows. And the pastures are, some of the pastures are 8,000, 10,000 acres or bigger. And the country's pretty rugged. And it takes cowboys well mounted. And I see a lot of these, quite a few young folks that have a university degree in animal science, and they take their position really seriously, and they want that job description, working cowboy. They take some pride in their equipment, in their gear, and we see a lot more horses, bridle horses, straight up in the bridle, being ridden with reins and ramal, or some in the two-rein now, than I used to see 20, 25 years ago.
Your question, to answer that, I'm going to speak, I can't speak for Canada, and it's going on. I can for California. The ranches are cut up. There's nowhere they can ride any way they want on a half-day period or all-day period on the ranch itself. So when you say, is it a dying thing? No, it's dead. It's gone.
And I could see some sadness in Ernie's eyes when he said that. And we will continue with more from Ernie, and he'll talk about why the old vaqueros were able to get so much more from their horses than most of today's trainers when the Spirit of the West continues right after this.
Our mission is to help our clients sell their equipment in the most effective way possible. People who are looking at our auction, they are literally all over North America. Once we take somebody through a process from start to finish the first time, they get it. You know, it's very simple. It's more simple than they think.
Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. You know, it's an amazing privilege to be able to spend time with a true legend and have a long conversation about things we're both passionate about. And as Ernie Morris lamented on the changes on the ranges of California, he also reflected on how horses and horsemanship are so different now.
The remnants of what's left is what you have to learn to accept. Most of them haven't seen that old-time guy and his going-ons. And I ain't bragging about anything. I'm calling spade a spade and go from there. The horses are started way too young now. They're talking 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds. Then it was 5 or over. And they could put in all day on him and he could take it. They can't. The babies can't take it. They keep coming up with spavins, hawks.
Cap hawks.
Yes. and splints, all kinds of things in the legs. That's one thing. Another thing is their mind is not ready for it. And that's pretty hard to understand from a point of a using horse. Some of them got all kinds of excuses why they come up lame or something else, but never their fault. And well, if they can think of an excuse good enough to satisfy everybody else, so what? But they can just buy another horse, I can tell you that, or get one any way they can. So why kill one? You're going to do that, take your gun and kill him, and you don't have to go through the misery of trying to bridle him. That's the way I got it figured out. I've had horses that were old horses and still good horses at almost 30 years of age. And I didn't kill them or hurt them. They just died naturally. And it wasn't, the fact is that I wasn't out there to give them a sugar-coated something or other. It's just that old Dad Time says it's time for you to go. And that's it.
Well, you'll hear more of Ernie's wisdom after another guy who handles a spade-bit pony pretty well. Here's Dave Stamey.
Sleep in a bedroll of canvas, and Ocean's feed on your ears. Wind blows the dust just like buckshot, and I ain't never seen it rain much out here. Smell your own sweat in the evening, wash up at the galvanized tank. Nearest town's 40 miles. The cook here, he don't smile, and all these young horses are rank. But come a tie-yi-yi-yi-o on the back of my caballo, I whoop it, I want on when I can. My spells, they don't ring much, I never did sing much, but I'm sure enough buckaroo man. Cold fingers stiff in the morning, by noon it's 103. 5-year-old slicks in the canyon, and never a hint of a breeze. Jug-headed hollow-back ponies provide all with hours of grief. There's snakes in the shade, choya on the grade, and a half a ton of grit between my teeth. But come a tie-yi-yi-yi-o on the back of my caballo, I whoop it, I want on when I can. My spurs, they don't ring much, I never did sing much, but I'm sure enough buckaroo man. But come a tie-yi-yi-yi-o on the back of my caballo, I whoop it, I want on when I can. My spells, they don't ring much, I never did sing much, but I'm sure enough buckaroo man. I said come a tie-yi-yi-yi-o on the back of my caballo, I whoop it, I want on when I can. My spells, they don't ring much, I never did sing much, but I'm sure enough buckaroo man.
The art and the gear making of Ernie Morris is legendary, and his paintings and his drawings have hung in galleries, graced many event posters and book covers, and they're considered to be one of the best and most accurate depictions of the California Vaquero ever. But he was pretty modest about that, and he kept bringing our conversation back to horses, vaqueros, and buckaroos.
If I had an interest in something else, I'd have probably been more wealthy today. You can't mess with horses and expect to get wealthy. There's too much time gets away from you, and you just don't get it done. But the satisfaction is something that nobody can buy from you. You got that. And I've rode bucking horses. I've rode all kinds of horses. And the California Range horse was the ultimate. I worked for that goal all the time. It was my last thoughts at night and my first ones in the morning when I get up. There's nothing finer on earth than maybe dancing with a nice dancing lady on a slick ballroom floor. And that's about the way it is with a horse. It takes time, lots of it. This is the land of mañana, tomorrow. When I was a young fella, I never could figure out when I was going to get something done today. Mañana. Well, what the hell about today? We'll take care of it tomorrow.
I've kind of observed that somewhat over the years, and always had some concerns about 2-year-olds being put into a performance horse program. And my own horses, best mare I ever had was 7 before she'd ever seen a human being or seen a saddle, and she's now somewhere between 25 and 30. And she can still do a day's work for me. And I took a long time, and I've got another mare that I don't keep track. And I bought her at a sale as a 2-year-old. She came through without a halter or anything on her. I wasn't in a big hurry to get her going. Now she's probably my best horse, and she's 10. And she's just getting to where she's kind of where I want her now. But, it's nice to have that luxury, I guess, of having that much time. And she's getting to be the kind of horse now I can go out in some pretty rugged country and hunt up a bunch of yearlings and ride her 8 or 9 hours and pretty much trust my life to her and know I'm going to be safe.
Good for you, Hugh. This is a good human story right there that it should be in practice today by everybody. But they'll tell you that in the economics, I can't stand that.
Yeah.
I got to have a horse right now. Okay, if you got to have a horse, why don't you take the pickup? You're already late. And why bother to bug the horse? Because he's been out there in the pasture or in the back paddock there somewhere or another. He hasn't been doing anything but eating the food you've been putting to him. And he's fat, and you're going to kill him. You're going to go out there and do something in a hurry and kill him. Okay, it's your funeral. Go for it.
Well, you'll hear more of the life and times of Ernie Morris in just a little while. Next, Baxter Black with the story of a renegade bull. And then the Rangeland news when the Spirit of the West continues right after this.
Howdy, friends. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, and I'll be right back after this with a little peek at cow painting.
Your land is a legacy, a challenge from those who tended it before you, to build on their foundations. At Corteva Agriscience, we understand what it means to be the stewards of a legacy. We embrace the challenge of building on the foundation of Dow AgroSciences to maintain your trust, to bring new solutions, to help you care for your land. See how we can help build your legacy at rangeandpasture.com.
And for our Canadian listeners, just check Corteva.ca, the Canadian website.
I've never quite understood the art of painting life-size plastic cows, although it's very creative. A piano company, for instance, will display a grand cow with her rib cage propped open and a keyboard for teeth. A jeweler could have a water-belly steer covered with glistening calculi stones. And a Mexican food restaurant's cow might look like a piñata. But where did the idea come from? Well, I think I know. The story has been passed down to the generations of California vaqueros and sale barn bull haulers until it's achieved legend proportions. Senor Geraldo, a rich rancher, good neighbor and Angus man, noticed one day that one of his bulls was gone. Well, he called his neighbor, another wealthy landlord and cattle baron. Sure enough, Geraldo's bull was running rampant in the neighbor's pen of crossbred heifers. Senor Geraldo saddled his registered purebred standing at stud stallion, loaded him and trailered him to the neighbors, sorted off the bull, and with much whacking and colorful drover language, trailered the bull home. Well, the next morning, the bull had escaped and returned to the neighbor's fertile playground. Geraldo repeated the saddling, loading, whacking, and cursing, but the bull stood his ground. Well, help was called. A local cowboy saddled, loaded, and drove to lend assistance. Alas, even two buen caballeros could not move the stubborn bull. Geraldo returned home dejected. Riding in, he noticed his 3 sons practicing with their paintball guns. An idea formed. He loaded the young boys and their armor into the old GMC ranch truck and returned to the neighbors. With the windows rolled down and the boys sticking out like queens on a parade float, he drove up behind the bull and ordered, "Open fire!" They fired, circled, reloaded, fired, circled, constantly moving closer to the corral gate until the bull finally tucked his tail and retreated. The truck, both inside and out, was thoroughly painted, as were the pistoleros, half the cows, the back of Geraldo's hat, and one side mirror now hung like a broken arm. But at least half the paintballs had struck their target. The bull now looked like a stained glass window. Had it not been for his pendulous sheath and white spot on his belly, you would not have known he was an Angus. And thus began the ancient tradition of painting urban cows. No bull. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, brought to you by Corteva Agri-Science.
Even in these challenging times, nothing gives ranchers more satisfaction than seeing mother cows and their calves happy and healthy, because we care for our cattle. More and more producers are using meloxicam oral suspension to minimize the stress on calves at branding time. And remember to use it on baby calves under a week old, because they feel pain the same as the older calves do. When it comes to keeping those baby calves comfortable, nothing provides longer relief than meloxicam oral suspension. Proven results and healthier, happier calves. To find out more, contact your vet and see solvet.ca. Solvet, your Canadian animal health company with a new state-of-the-art manufacturing facility in Calgary. Just ahead of the Rangeland news, Ernie Morris has created a lot of wonderful images of the California Vaquero, the spade-bid horseman from the land of Manana, and Ian Tyson has painted a very accurate picture in music with this one.
He's an old vaquero from another time, hands as fine as the dealers of Reno. He been to the ocean, he been to the sea. Big long tapaderos hanging both sides of an old Visalia tree. Hey, Mr. Vaquero, put a handle on the pony for me. Teach me the mystery. Wakina de Freno, he's an old amansador, still hanging on, just about gone like the California condor. He been down to the rodeo ground, seen him on the movie screen now, but sometimes I think he's like America, only see him in my dreams. Hey, Mr. Vaquero, put a handle on the pony for me. Teach me the mystery. Did they sing all day? Did they dance all night? Did they ride their spade ponies through the golden light? Did they find true love? Was that all a bunch of lies? Keep sobbing, maybe it's paradise. He's an old vaquero from another time, hands as fine as the dealers of Reno. He been to the ocean, he been to the sea. Big long tapaderos hanging both sides of an old Visalia tree. Hey, Mr. Vaquero, put a handle on my pony for me. Teach teach me the mystery. Mr. Vaquero, put a handle on my pony for me, teach me the mystery. Did they sing all day? Did they dance all night? Did they ride their spade ponies through the golden light? Did they find true love? Was it all a bunch of lies? Keep sobbing, baby, it was paradise.
The Rangeland News from the Spirit of the West, a roundup of issues and events from the world of agriculture.
Thank you, Jeff. At the top of page 1, it says the export of agricultural products seems to be leading the way to an economic recovery in the U.S. Gary Crawford has the details.
The U.S. is having a very strong ag export year so far, with exports at the midpoint of the fiscal year running almost $20 billion higher than the same 6-month period a year ago.
Import numbers are also strong, indicating that U.S. consumption is going up,
which in many ways is a good sign. This from USDA economist and trade tracker Dylan Russell. Agricultural products coming into the U.S. from other countries during the first half of this fiscal year were worth $76.8 billion. That's about 7% more than the same time frame a year ago. We are buying more coffee, fruits, vegetables, and other foreign products, and he says that's one sign of a strengthening U.S. economy.
You're just seeing sort of the results of economic recovery. This past quarter, the U.S. economy grew just over 6%, like 6.4% GDP growth.
Compared to a 4% growth in the last quarter of 2020 and a 3.5% decline for all of 2020. Gary Crawford reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Well, Canada does rank as the second largest market for U.S. ag exports. U.S. food and ag exports to Canada reached $22.1 billion last year. And a tip of the hat to Scott and Elan Lees of Soderglen Ranches. They've been honored with the 2021 Environmental Steward Award from Alberta beef producers. And that comes on the heel of Soderglen's recent win of AgSight's Mark of Excellence Award for its leadership in livestock genetics. Soderglen focuses on breeds including Charolais, Red Angus, Black Angus, Red Simmental, and Black Simmental. And it's also developed 2 of its own hybrids, Continental Carcass Maker and Red Black Max. A national poll has found that more than a third of Canadians are eating less red meat than they were a year ago. The online survey involved 1,000 people across the country from March 23rd to the 30th. 35% said they had consumed less beef in the previous 12 months, nearly triple the 12% who ate more beef. And the poll also showed 25% of respondents ate less pork, and that's nearly double the 13% who consumed more of it. And 30% of the people aged 65 and over said they cannot or do not eat plant-based protein, similar to 28% for those ages 55 to 64. And the total for all Canadians was 21%. Ranchers in British Columbia are seeing evidence of more grizzly bears, and with that comes growing concerns about the safety of ranching families and their livestock. George Olin, who ranches in the Vanderhoof area, where folks hear us up there every weekend, lost several cattle, including a Simmental bull to grizzlies last fall. And Cam Hill coordinates the BC Cattlemen's Association Livestock Protection Program, and he invested the losses along with a conservation officer, and they verified 11 cattle kills between Olin and his neighbors, and additional cattle were still missing. And 2 grizzlies were killed, and at least 3 others were suspected of being involved. And if you've been in Walmart, you may have seen your Fresh Market brand. Well, the Fresh Market now carries a sustainability certification label on each package of beef patties. Walmart Canada becomes the first grocery retailer in Canada to feature the on-pack sustainability claim on a line of beef products. And Walmart is sourcing a big enough quantity of beef from certified sustainable farms and ranches according to standards set by the Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Beef that has permission to include the sustainability certification label. And a well-known ranch in Montana under contract for including a 2,000 cow commercial Angus herd brought an offer of $136.25 million just 1 week after it was listed. The Climbing Arrow Ranch, featured in the 1992 Robert Redford movie A River Runs Through It, sold for its asking price following a bidding war, according to the Wall Street Journal. And the listing agent, Mike Swan of Swan Land and Cattle Company, confirmed the property was under contract. Well, there's a regular cattle sale at the BC Livestock Co-op Okanagan Falls Yards on June 7th and a regular sale in Kamloops Tuesday, June the 8th. Get all the information. See the sales streaming live at bclivestock.bc.ca. And meanwhile, at the Innisfail Auction Market, regular cattle sales every Wednesday. Get the details at innisfailauctionmarket.com. And to book your cattle, give Danny, Mark, or Dwayne a call, 1-800-710-3166. Okay, now the final item. And I thought I'd like to take Billy somewhere really expensive for our last trip to town last week, and she found that lumber store really interesting. And oh boy, the high price of wood has led to a demand for loggers around here. And I heard that a guy who was out of work talked to the foreman about getting a job in the woods for a logging outfit. And the foreman wanted to make sure that this guy understood the hazards. And he said, "You need to know that operating a big chainsaw is very dangerous. Just ask my half-brother." And that's the Rangeland News. All right. Coming up in the Urban Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, a look at how the way a colt grew up can really influence how he handles things when his training starts. And there's more of the life and times of Ernie Morris when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Now, just ahead of the Urban Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, I'd just like to mention that the BC Yukon Kidney Walk is on this weekend, and again, I'll be taking part, and I never walk when I can ride, so my good mare Cody and I are going on a long ride over the mountains, and you'll be able to see it on Facebook and YouTube. And of course, it's to raise funds for the Kidney Foundation that provides so much help to the many folks living with kidney disease. And it was sure a huge help to us while I was getting a kidney transplant donated by Lewis the Big Rig McIver back in 2017. Just go to kidneywalk.ca if you'd like to sponsor us, and click on the BC Yukon button, and my name should pop up there. And thank you so much to those of you who already have sponsored us. You can also get there at the link on our website, hugh-mclennan.com.
Now it's time for the Horse Training File, brought to you by Irvine Tack and Western Wear, Canada's largest Western store.
Borders are closed. Staying home. What'll we do? Oh, yeah, what we always do, hop on a horse or take a sunset stroll. How about a hike off the beaten path, capped off by a blazing bonfire under the stars? That'll do just fine. This spring, Urban Tack and Western Wear has everything you need to tackle the outdoors. Hiking boots, jackets, flannel hoodies, like I said, everything. Stop in soon, exit 305 off Highway 2 by Crossfield, or shop online at urbans.ca. Canada's largest Western store. When you don't know the history behind a horse with serious issues, sometimes it can take quite a while to figure him out. The way a colt was raised before he had serious contact with humans has a lot to do with his trainability. For example, at the James Creek Ranch, I watched Jonathan Field do a bit of amazing round pen work. First, he brought in a thoroughbred quarter horse cross, 2-year-old bay that he bought. Now, this bay colt had been born in a big desert pasture where he grew up running at his mama's side in a herd of about 50 horses. And then Jonathan brought in a big warm blood jumper, about 5 or 6 years old. This horse was raised in a box stall, started into jump training as a 3-year-old, and about 6 months after he was started, was becoming absolutely unmanageable and dangerous. He refused to go over even the smallest jump. When the trainer pressured him, he would rear and buck, and was becoming, in the trainer's opinion, too dangerous to work with. So, in desperation, they called Jonathan, and he wound up actually acquiring the Big Gray. Now, to my surprise, after he did a little groundwork with the bay colt, he turned the Big Gray warm blood in with him and let them both go. Whoa, I thought that big warm blood will just kick the daylights out of that little bay. But Jonathan, nimble as he is, worked with the two of them in the way an alpha mare would work with a little group of yearlings until they were running in tandem. Then, with more skillful body language, he got the little bay to come to him and acknowledge him as the leader. The warm blood continued to run around the pen, and Jonathan said the little bay was looking for the answer, but the warm blood was still in total flight. Finally, the warm blood turned and looked at Jonathan and the bay, and then moved towards them. The little bay positioned himself between Jonathan and the warm blood backed off. It was fascinating to watch. You could see the herd dynamic totally at work. It was as if the little bay was saying, I was raised in a bunch of tougher guys than you, and Jonathan is my leader, and by the way, I'm your leader. And the warm blood agreed. Jonathan put it this way, looking at the future of these two, the warm blood has been pressured way too much, and he said it might take 2 years to recover from his man-made issues and get back to square one, while the little bay, with only a couple of hours' work, is already past grade 1 and approaching grade 2. For Irvin Saddles and Western Wear, that is the horse training file. And I was just looking at Cody, thinking that she's going to do just great on our kidney ride, and we go a lot further than most of the people at March go. And she's in pretty good shape, and we attribute a lot of that to her daily feeding of Hoffman's Horse Ration. And you can find out all about what's in it at hoffmanshorseproducts.com. Got a branding coming up? Well, this might be important for you to hear. As cattle ranchers, we put up with the weather, the uncertain markets, the long hours, because we care for cattle. We gladly give up a night's sleep to keep a newborn calf alive. That's why we're embracing a product that minimizes the discomfort felt when necessary procedures are carried out at branding time. Meloxicam oral suspension delivers the longest proven relief from pain and swelling in a single dose. And remember to use it on baby calves under a week old. They feel pain the same as the older calves do. Contact your vet and visit solvet.ca. Meloxicam, because it's the right thing to do. Oral Meloxicam, a convenient needle-free way to administer long-duration pain relief. Just before we get back to the life and times of Earnie Morris, you know, I've watched a lot of riders and a lot of horses over the years and really admired the way some folks sit a horse, as they say. And I guess, in the words of Richard Martin, it does matter how you ride.
It don't matter where you're going, but it matters how you get there. It don't matter what game you choose, but it matters that you play fair. We all know that life ain't fair. You gotta ride the horses you cut. You gotta ride newer pastures, reining out of that old rut. When you look back upon your life, you should smile a little with pride. It don't matter where you point your horse, but it matters how you ride.
in a pile. Just get back up, smile, and try again with style. It don't matter where you've been, most folks don't even care. It's more important where you're headed than how you're getting there. And when you look back upon your life, you should smile a little with pride. Don't matter where you point your horse, but it matters how you ride. And when you look back upon your life, you should smile a little with pride. Don't matter where you point your horse, but it matters how you ride.
No matter where you point your horse, it matters how you ride. As you heard at the start of this one, the legend Ernie Morris rode across the Great Divide on May the 5th. And during that memorable visit in California, he talks about how the vaquero tradition is never being in a hurry.
And I had a world champion cowboy in the rodeo business, and I was putting on a demonstration with a ranch horse. And I put an animal down to show how we get a horse to hold on a calf. Well, you're on the ground, you're working alone. And he come over and smarted off in the crowd. He said, is this a timed event? I said, yes, sir. Dark to dark, more time if I need it. I never heard another word out of him.
Man.
And as I stated, Hugh, my early training, naturally from a little boy, they were all braiders and horsemen, vaqueros. And the subject all the time was about that, around the table and after. And I was interested from the word go.
Ernie, so nice to meet you. As I said, I've admired your work for a long, long time.
Thank you, Hugh, and it's nice meeting you. And good luck, bon voyage, going home.
Adios.
You bet.
Ernie Morris, 1927 to 2021.
It's the look of sunlight on silver, with the smell of frost in the air, and the sound of a tired horse blowing that keeps him riding out there. It's horses jingled by starlight, the herd held up for the cut, the pride of those young cowboys riding, and the warmth of the sun coming up. 'Cause the memories are rhymes that bring back the times and the places the cowboy has rode. They might hang in the wind, but they'll come back again and warm him when he grows old. He'll remember the friendship and laughter in the field of his horse working right. The sunset when day's work is over, and the times round the fire at night.
sound of a good cowboy singing, and the words of the poems that he said. The coolness of the night air he's breathing as he lays in his old canvas bed. But if memories are rhymes, then what of the times when upwards his soul will roam? He'll stand there amazed where the star herds now graze as he stares round his heavenly home. For the look of sunlight on silver and the smell of frost in the air, the sound of a tired horse blowing will meet him when he's riding up there.
Ben Crane, Sunlight on Silver, and I'm sure Ernie would approve of that one. Well, next, I think you're really going to enjoy our classic Song of the West and the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Great piece of cowboy poetry coming up that's, I think, pretty fitting for this week. And the melody of this week's classic Song in the West has kind of a haunting familiarity about it. I find myself humming it many times when I'm out on a good horse. This is Gary Tolley and Gunsmoke Trail.
Gunsmoke Trail, oh tell me of days gone by. To wind your way, are the ghostly horsemen riding as they speed the eastern mail. It's up to you to see them through Gunsmoke Trail. The gunsmoke now has faded from the blazing 44s. The stagecoach is rusting on the hill. The wagon wheels you used to feel will sing their songs no more. The sound of the caravan is still Gunsmoke Trail. No traveler to care where you go. Sands of time are hiding your way. But if heaven never let you, you could tell a rugged tale. That's why I hate to see you fade Gunsmoke Trail. The gunsmoke now has faded from the blazing 44s. The stagecoach is rusting on the hill. The wagon wheels you used to feel will sing their songs no more. The sound of the caravan is still Gunsmoke Trail. No traveler to care where you go. Sands of time are hiding your way. But if heaven never let you, you can tell a rugged tale. That's why I hate to see you fade Gunsmoke Trail. Gunsmoke Trail.
Well, we're still thinking about Ernie Morris, and the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight now shines on R.J. Vandegrift with J.W. Beeson's Last of the Breed.
As the sounds of the morning come dancing Through the darkness it's just before dawn. An old sorrel mare lifts her head in the air as a light in the bunkhouse comes on. And then, like an echo of things from the past, a cowboy walks out toward the barn with a blue heeler pup staying close to his heels and a bridle hung over his arm. And he walks in the tracks that his granddaddy made, like a trip through a crevice in time. It's 100-year walk from the house to the barn, but he knows in the back of his mind that he's one of the highly exalted, in love with the life that he leads. He's known as a cowboy, a wild buckaroo, a hero in legend and deed. He's one of the last of a breed. The horses stand patiently waiting, the sorrels, the buckskins, the blues, and like him, they're grandsons of legends, like Badger and Peter McHugh. And soon the time-honored tradition of choosing a mount will take place, and two kindred spirits will be partnered up by a hula hand's whirling embrace. From the bluebonnet prairies of Texas, where the Indian paintbrush grows wild, to the Bitterroot Range of Montana, where the big sky stretches for miles, on the TLX and the Matador and the Quarter Circle A, as the sunshine splits the darkness, the cowboy starts his day. And he'll sit there like a monarch in a 3X beaver crown on a throne of hand-tooled leather, 16 hands above the ground. And he's sure he's the richest man that ever breathed in air, though his kingdom's filled with soapweed and the sage and the prickly pear. He's one of the highly exalted, in love with the life that he leads. He's known as a cowboy, a wild buckaroo, a hero in legend and deed. He's one of the last of a breed.
Well, thank you again for joining up and riding along, and I sure hope you can be back here next week, right here at the same time. And thanks as always to our great support crew, Mark and Kathy McMillan. And Mark can sure help you find parts for your machinery with his page, bctractorparts.com. Now, if you'd like to sponsor Cody and I on our Ride for the Kidney Foundation, just go to kidneywalk.ca. And you will see us doing that on our YouTube channel, and that's where you can see and hear all of our shows. Get the links at hugh-mclennan.com. Till next week, I'm Hugh McLennan. Hope to see you down the trail somewhere real soon.